Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today I will teach you how to drive Imola in the wonderful Ferrari 296 GT3. My name is Gregor Schill. I'm a coach and test driver for the Coach Dave Academy and also a professional esports driver for the BS Plus competition team. If we hop on now into the Ferrari, we want, especially for the hot laps or quali lap times, to get like the final hundreds. You want to open up the corner slightly more than you would do if you would drive normally. So just take slightly a bit of a later entry, so you can open up the steering earlier and straight line the exit more, so just that you can essentially gain a couple of hundreds onto the straight as you have like a bit of a minor top speed advantage. Turn 1 braking is pretty difficult because we don't have like a normal straight, as we have still like slight amount of corners. And what we want to do is here, you want to straight line your steering at this stage so you can brake in a straight line. And you brake just before the curb starts here, so at the 100 meter wall basically. Stay long on the outside, turn in, and cut as much as the track limit allows you, but be careful, only take the triangle curb, don't use more. And the same applies for the second corner. And really important, don't try to overdrive those corners, because most of the time if you do that you end up too much here on the left, and especially in the GT3 cars you won't be able to recover basically the car into the middle of the road, and as a result of that you will just essentially understeer through the following left-hander. Doesn't matter if you have like a setup which rotates or not. So definitely rather compromise the speed slightly so you can take this corner flat. And also here you can cut as much as you want, but don't do it more than the triangle curbs. Also here it's important to maximize the track. Now for the quick chicane, where do we brake? We aim for the second Goodyear sign here, this one on the right, which is on the same level as the 50 meter board. So if in case the Goodyear sign is destroyed because of an accident, you can still use the 50 meter board. And just when we are basically on the same level and it's out of our view, we brake and carry a lot of speed into this corner. Cut as much as we can, like in turn 1. Position the car nicely for turn 2. And sometimes, depending on the cars, you also need to use a bit of throttle between those corners to stabilize the car. But the perfect line would be if you just carry enough entry speed to the first part that you just need to use the brake here to trail or to rotate the car to the apex, and as soon as you reach the apex you floor the throttle and run wide and carry the maximum speed you're able to. And I know from my personal experience that this section is pretty hard to drive, right? So let's have a quick look in Delta how we need to approach it. So you see here what we approach at a really high speed, 220, then we brake pretty hard initially, carry a lot of speed into the corner, and as soon as we're done with the corner and we have like almost a straight steering, that's where we brake again, trail slightly to get the car rotated, and then as soon as we hit the apex, that's where we floor the car and maximize the track on the exit. Now the hairpin, pretty easy with the ABS cars. You use the 50 meter marker as you see on the right here as a reference, and after you've passed it, that's where you brake. You can brake really hard, but it's important that you trail till the apex to get the car rotated around the corner. So as soon as you're at the apex, you go onto the throttle and open the steering and maximize the track on the exit. It's really crucial here that you open the steering, otherwise the TC will cut too much in, or if you run pretty aggressive TC you can even spin, so be careful here. Now for the following left-hander, it's also one of the more harder corners in my experience, because you need to carry a lot of speed to be quick. And even if you have a quick first sector and you think you want to take it easy, rather don't, because you will lose your entire advantage. So just stick to your normal braking point and don't try to save your time by driving a bit less aggressive. And what you want to do here is you see the 50 meter marker, and after you've passed it, you can use here actually on the right side where you have the dirt and not the grass here, as you see. So basically right now where the wiper is, just here, that's the reference you can use, so where you have no grass as a braking point. And then a lot of speed into the corner, and just as you reach the apex, maybe slightly half a meter afterwards, that's where you want to go into the power, because there you know that you carried the most speed which you were able to. If you go too early on the power, you know that you basically didn't use the entire potential on the entry in the terms of speed you can carry through. Maximize the track on the exit really, And always try to remember, you want to maximize the track on the exits because of the speed you carry, not because you just try to copy the line and open the steering. The root of maximizing the track always needs to be maximizing the speed. Now, for the Aqua Minerale, which is the hardest corner in my opinion on this track, you just, after the 50 meters you start to turn in, brake slightly to get a bit of front bite, to get the car turned initially, and then that's the point here when you drive over the curb and try to straight line your braking zone now, because you want to brake hard, but in order to brake hard you need to have a straight steering, as you know, because you only have 100% of grip. If you steer and brake at the same time to the maximum amount, the tire won't be able to cope with that. So that's why it's crucial that you have here straight steering and maximize the track in this phase. So when you are done with the slowing down process, you can still use the brake slightly to rotate the car with trail braking into the apex and floor the car as soon as the corner starts to open up. Make sure to maximize the track here on the exit, but be careful with the gravel, because this can not only cause you lap time but also give you a cut. And I know essentially how hard this section is, especially in the GT3 cars, because you really need to push for the brakes there, or on the brakes. So let's have a quick look into Delta here. If we look at the driving line, we see here really well how we use slightly amount of brake here to get the front end to bite, to position ourselves here at the apex straight. And then you see, as soon as we can open up the steering, we go really hard and aggressive into the brakes. But as we essentially need to turn in again for the second part, we need to already reduce the brakes so we don't understeer off the track. And as soon as you see we reach the apex, even before, if you pointed at the car right, you can go aggressively on the car, on the power, and maximize the track on the exit. And don't worry, it's normal that you fight some oversteer here on the entry, because the car is really lively, it goes downhill, use the brake, you load the fronts, and you have a lot of front end to work with, so don't mind if you have a bit of oversteer, you know, but just important to be able to control it essentially. Now for the chicane. Normally a pretty tough corner if you have no reference points, but with the reference point I give you now, it should be much easier. So you see the curb here on the left side starting, and after you basically position the car on it, that's where you brake, so just before the 50 meter board. And then really important, you cut as much as you can, as much as the track limit allows you to, and maximize the track also on the exit. From my personal experience, you can cut the first part more, so the right-hander than the left-hander, but it's just my personal, you know, experience, so don't quote me on that. And then we approach the final two corners, the double left-handers, and if you had a really great lap till that point, don't try to take the following corners too safe, because you can lose a lot of time by doing that. But also on the contrary, if you had not really good first and second sector, try to not gain all the time back in those two corners, because this will never work. My opinion is try to reset basically your brain and just think about your braking point, which you would normally use, because this will give you the best outcome essentially. And what we do here is we can brake quite late, so that's why I tell you to not take it too safe. And we use the 100 meter board as a reference, but we brake after that around like 80 meters. So if you want, you can even take like the distance from the essentially yellow LED to the car where it is when you are basically at 80 meters. You even see the 50 meter marker behind the DHL sign, but basically at 80 meters, that's where you start to brake. And also, small tip, try to use the curb here on the right side, because what happens is when you drive off it, it gives you like a nice rotation boost. So this helps you to brake later and still get the rotation done before the apex. So when we turn in, we use this rotation boost. We cut as much as we can over the curb here, but not over the grass, of course. Go onto the power, maximize the track here. And you see here on the exit where the triangle curb ends, and you have like this, basically only the Italian curb available. That's where your turning point is, so you can just follow the line here on the right. Brake really slightly, tap the brakes to get the front end loaded, to get a nice front bite. This will be enough to get the car rotated, maximize the track, and as I said, only the triangle curbs, not the green part on the left, because this will unsettle the car too much. Be aggressive onto the power, maximize the track on the exit, and then you're essentially done with the lap. Really important in the race scenario, it can happen that the tires get warmer and warmer. So the last sector will be a bit more traction limited. So really try to listen there to the tires and don't basically drive the lap as you would do in quali. Really try to manage the tires there. And if you're of course on the quali lap and you want to maximize the last thousands, try to also drive here the tightest line. So this will be just like as close as possible to the pit wall. And yeah, just like that, we're done with the lap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop some questions into the messages you can put below the video. And now if you're wondering how a quick hot lap looks around Imola in the 296 Ferrari GT3, you can watch now the video till the end where you see an incredible hot lap from another CDA test driver, Tariq Adam. Other than that, thanks for tuning in and see you in the next lap guide. Bye bye.